Ansa, papastem tsikaso. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about storytelling or legend telling because I I am a storyteller, a traditional storyteller, and for myself I know close to I think maybe close to 80 legends and stories about that have been passed down to me, uh, passed down from generation to generation. And as a Nihiawak, storytelling is very near and dear to us. It's a big part of our way of life because storytelling is sort of the beginning of learning. And when we're taught things, it usually begins with storytelling before we are taught about. Say, if I was learning about Wapos Tapagwiwan, rabbit snaring, I would first be told a story or a legend about Wapos just to sort of set that stage. And that's how most of our Kihtihiak uh, pass on knowledge, or our elders, when they pass on knowledge, they usually begin through storytelling and telling of legend. But a few things to know about storytelling and legends. We do have particular times of the year when we uh, uh, most typically tell stories and legend, and those uh, are usually during the winter months. And in fact, it's usually the winter solstice or that full moon in December that really starts off the storytelling season for Nihioa because that's we've always known that as the storytelling moon because as Nihioa, one of the things that has been passed down is that we should only be telling stories during the winter like that when the nights are long and cold and we're inside for a lot of the time, so that's the best time to tell stories. Um, and there's actually a real practical reason to that as well, because as Niha, as Cree people, we're also taught that we need to be productive while uh, Mosum Pisum is up, or grandfather's sun. So while grandfather's sun is shining, we're told we need to be awake and doing things productive and doing something throughout those daylight hours. So of course in the winter we get very little daylight hours and a lot of uh, darkness. So this is when those long nights, typically when we tell stories to pass the time and to pass teachings and to uh, pass our legends down from generation to generation. One thing I'm often asked about is there a special ceremony or is there any protocols that have to be done with storytelling? And the answer is yes and no. Typically, for the majority of our stories, there is no protocol. As with any knowledge with Nihiawak, with Cree peoples, we were told we have an obligation or we've made a promise to pass down all of our knowledge, and that includes storytelling. So, in a sense, we have no choice but to pass those stories on. Uh, do you have to be indigenous to tell stories? No. If the way I was taught is if a story is told to you, that story is given to you, not to keep, but given to you to pass to somebody else. So that's how storytelling works, whether you're indigenous or non indigenous. If we tell you a story, we are, in a sense, handing that story off to you to continue telling that story and pass it on far and wide. There are some stories that are told only in ceremonies, in the sweat lodge ceremony, in the Sundance ceremony, in the pipe ceremonies. And those ceremonial stories can only be told in ceremony. I myself, I never share any of those ceremonial stories, and you won't see any passed down through through any of the material that I put out there, because those stories are special to ceremonies, and with those stories, yes, there is a protocol that those stories are only told in ceremony. Now, with another thing with storytelling that I really need to stress as well is the trickster stories. With trickster stories, we're told we can only say trickster's name while there's snow on the ground. So right now you could see there's snow on the ground. So I can say trickster's name. And in Cree, we our name for trickster is Wisakita. And right now I could say Wisakita's name because there's snow on the ground with me. However, anytime when there's not snow on the ground, we as Nihilak, as Cree peoples, we're told we cannot say the name of trickster. So I always honor that, because not only to honor the teachings, but because we were taught as Nihilak that if we say the name of trickster when there's not snow on the ground, then trickster is going to get offended and something bad's going to happen to us. So that's the teaching we're given. So we never say his name when there's not snow on the ground. But with snow on the ground, we can say Wisakichak when we tell the stories. Uh, any other time, I wouldn't say his name. I would just say trickster without naming him. So within legends and stories, there are, as a storyteller, I found that there are three major types of legends and stories. And those are creation legends is one. Second one is star stories. And the third major storytelling is the trickster stories. So we've got creation stories, star stories, and trickster stories. Now there's different um, divisions within those three, but those are the three major storytelling types. Say within creation stories, we have origins of the world around us. We have origins of plants, and we have stories about origins of animals. And those can be divided into sections within those creation stories. With star stories, uh, those are very special stories about the stars, the constellations, the sun, the moon, all of the northern lights, all of those celestial or stories about the sky. And of course, trickster stories. There are tons and tons of trickster stories, because the trickster stories sort of go uh, like an epic, where you can follow right from when trickster first came onto this world and follow him through his journey throughout life. So it's kind of a whole trickster series that you can follow with the stories. So those are the major types of stories and legends. So that's what I wanted to share with you today about storytelling and legends. Uh, like I said, as Nihioak, if we tell you a story, that means we're handing that story to you to get that story out there and tell it far and wide. It's not those stories aren't meant to be kept or not meant to be hidden from anyone. So I hope you learned something today about legends and stories. Kinanas kum tinuaw. Hey, hey.